we're going to talk about alternative worlds and an exercise that you can do regardless of industry that you're in to help drive some innovation in your space. So, who am I? I'm Brian Neitz. I'm the Director of Product Management at Sopheon. Through Sopheon, I like to say that we are the world's coolest company that you've never heard of. So we create a suite of products that companies use in their innovation management system, and we help everybody from CPG companies to figure out how can they create more sustainable snacks and healthier snacks. So it's not just sugar and fat in a plastic package. To help drive down the cost of healthcare here in the US, to chemical companies that are trying to figure out how do we make more sustainable plastics and fight things like climate change. So our really, really lofty mission, our new line is we are the company that helps other companies change the world. And so it is a really inspiring mission. It's something that we really enjoy succeeding, because even when we lose a deal, we're pushing the competition to make better innovation management tools and hopefully create a better world for the world that my kids are going to grow up in. So a little bit about myself. I manage product teams in different verticals. So I've been in healthcare, I've been in finance, I've been in retail, B2B SaaS now. So I've been kind of all over different verticals. This is something that I've used in each one of those verticals, just to show that it is something that is transferable independent of what industry you're in. So the other thing is we're now living in this experience economy, right? We talk a lot when I was working at a bank, and we talk about our mobile app. Our mobile app sits next to Uber, right? It sits next to DoorDash. So the experience that our customers are expecting from us isn't what they expect from a bank, it's what they expect from that real estate, right? So we're competing with Uber, we're competing with DoorDash for that experience economy. I do have 3 little boys, so when I'm not here, I am a part-time jungle gym and soccer coach and everything else that comes along with that. And yeah, I am an adequate youth soccer coach. My oldest is very, very into soccer, and I played growing up, so I get to be a part of that. And last thing is that I'm very excited to be here today. This is a really cool venue, really cool event. So looking forward to talking a little bit more about this exercise. So just the agenda for how we're going to go through this, we'll go through a little bit of background on what is this exercise, why you do it, when you do it, how, where, all of those types of things. And then we'll get into a little bit of a case study of how we used it recently in our product discovery as we build a new product at Sopheon. So first thing is, what is it? What is this thing? What does it do? I'm sure some of you, when you saw the abstract, you thought of the James Gunn book. It's not quite that. Maybe if you want to stretch it, you could think of it that way. But it's really a design exercise. It is aimed at broadening your solution space. So this is a really nice way for you to, if anybody's familiar with the double diamond of HCD, once you've landed on a problem statement, really being able to say, okay, let's go ahead and really expand the solution space so we can start looking at what's the ideal solution. So the other parts of this is it does break the mold. So it's a way that if you're in a rut, if you feel like, man, we're just constantly doing competitive analysis and trying to do feature grids and all of these types of things, looking at spec sheets and saying, oh, well, our processor is a little bit faster than their processor. Yes. All right. That gets old after about 30 minutes. And it does offer new perspective, right? Looking outside of your industry allows you to say, okay, where do we see analogous problems to this? How do other people solve similar problems? And what makes them so good at it? So why would you use it? If anybody recognizes this picture, that's Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society. One of my favorite scenes of any movie ever, where he stands on top of the desk, and that's why is he doing it? Right? He's trying to get a different perspective. He wants to view the world from a different point of view. So that's the biggest thing for me on why this is so powerful, right? when we start talking about mobile apps and we compare it to our website, well, that's not really what we should be, that's not the perspective we should have, right? It's not a screen I carry around, it's the most personal device that I have and I've ever had in history, right? My photos are in there with my kids, my credit card information is in there, it knows everything about me, it knows where I am, it knows what I've been up to. So the way that I approach bringing an experience to a mobile app isn't just, hey, how do I get the features from this screen to this screen, right? It's what do I know about the person and the context that they're in to drive a completely different experience that's differentiated from, hey, look, here's another screen that you can see our website on. Cool. Other parts of this, like try different, there we go. It does redefine what's possible, right? We get into this rut of looking at our competition and having our boundaries set by that, right? And we start to think about, okay, well, we can't do this, and we start eliminating solutions before we've ever explored them because we know, well, our industry doesn't do that, right? When we start looking at industries like airlines, think about Southwest and their safety instructions. If Southwest didn't create a better solution space for their employees, nobody would ever hear a rap about the safety instructions on a 737, right? So those are the types of things that this allows you to say, okay, what creates these experiences and why are people so successful at that? It allows you to better understand consumer framework. So we talked a lot about the mobile apps, right? By looking at it through this lens, you're not looking at, hey, how do our customers view us versus our competition? It's how do our customers view us and the problem that they're solving and in their greater life, right? What are the other things that they're saying, man, why can't this just be like Uber, right? Why can't this just be like, and so you start to think about those types of solutions and say, all right, well, yeah, why can't we do that? And then the last thing is this does allow you to steal ethically. So I've been in product long enough to know there's not enough time to come up with all of your own great ideas, right? And so while it may not be ethical to steal directly from your competition, I did work at Citibank whenever our mobile app was very, very similar to Amex after someone from Amex came to Citibank. Complete coincidence. Just want to clear that up right now. But it does allow you to say, okay, what are some things that we can steal in an ethical way and really mimic, right? And exemplify from other industries. So when would you use it? That's another great Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's asked, these ever killed people? And he says, yeah, but they were all bad. To differentiate yourself, but more than that, when your competition also sucks at solving the same problem, right? The example I use here is if you work in a call center, don't beat me up after this. If you work in a call center and your problem that you're trying to solve for is your queuing strategy, looking at how other call centers handle their queuing strategy, probably not the best way to do it, right? Like, I'm sorry, they all suck. And so there's very limited utility that you're going to be getting from looking at competition. In that instance, maybe you look at Disney, right? How does Disney get people to wait an hour and a half in line in 105-degree heat, in 6,000% humidity, with screaming kids, and still with a straight face say they've created the happy place on it?
Yeah.
Right? They do a pretty good job at queuing, right? Like they've got a really good strategy for how they keep people engaged while they're waiting in line. And then the other part here is you have a large non-buyer group, right? So if there's a big group of people that have your problem that aren't buying the solution, if anybody's worked in software, I think pretty much everybody's biggest competition is, oh, we do that in Excel. Jesus, Lord, please save me if I hear again, oh, we do that in Excel. Excel's a great tool, wasn't built for product roadmaps, I hate to tell you. So if you have that type of situation, this allows you to say, okay, well, what are they doing? What has made that so successful? What are the jobs that they're solving? And then who does this? Obviously everyone, but the biggest things here is you want to drive to a big group working on this, not just your designers, right? People bring different experiences and different perspectives. The more perspectives you have while you're doing this exercise, the better off you're gonna be, right? At some point, if you get somebody in the room that's been to a silent nightclub where they all wear headphones and everybody else is 65 years old, that person's probably gonna have a different perspective than the other people in the room, right? The more perspectives you can bring into this, the more experiences you can draw from, the better your results are gonna be. Also some newbies. So I won't say which healthcare company it was, but a healthcare company here in Pittsburgh opened a role for Vice President of Digital Products. And in the job description, they said they wanted somebody that was going to challenge the status quo and rethink the delivery of healthcare. Anybody want to guess what industry they hired from? Healthcare. Really, really challenging for that person to come in and completely rethink the delivery of healthcare. So get some people that are new to the company, new to the industry, whatever it may be. They won't be constrained by the, oh, you can't do that because, right? It is one of the best hats that they can wear in this exercise. And then people from other verticals, right? If you can pull people in from your finance team, right? If you can pull people in from your marketing or your HR team, get somebody in the room that doesn't work on the problem all day long, right? They may have a similar problem that they can draw that analogy to and show you, hey, think of it this way, and it unlocks a completely different solution set. If anybody know this person? Bonus points, gold stars if you do. So this is Steve Blank. So Steve Blank is the famous quote of "Get out of the building." No good product innovation and product development happens if you're sitting in your cubicle. Go talk to people, go see things, go experience it. So the more that you can get out, the more that you can immerse yourself in things, the better off you're going to be. And then, if anybody is familiar with the Loomis Institute here in Pittsburgh, they have this idea of recipes, right? So it's different design exercises you can put together depending on what you're trying to achieve. Mix up the recipe, right? Pair this with different things. Pair this with affinity clustering, pair this with immersion, whatever it may be, but really try to mix up the way that you approach this. And then also, if you can get someone from the alternative worlds to interview and sit down with you and spend 30 minutes saying, like, hey, talk to me about your process, right? I won't tell you how many emails and LinkedIn messages and I'm about to go to Orlando next week, so probably just like flyers on people's windshields that I'm going to leave, trying to get someone from Pixar to just talk to me about their storytelling process. Right? Tell me about how you guys create stories, right? That to me, as a product person, is one of the most powerful ways that we can communicate our message. And so the more that I understand how that industry does it, and does it to the point where people are paying billions of dollars to hear the stories that they're sharing, the better off I will be as a product person, right? So try to get somebody from that alternative world and really interview them, understand their process as much as possible. So how to do the exercise, we can talk more about this, but I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. The biggest thing is identify your problem. So this is coming, again, if you're looking at the HC double diamond, the end of the first diamond where you've challenged the problem, where you've investigated the problem statement, you've laid it on, yeah, we think this is the problem statement. It starts right there. So this picks up when you're starting from solution space. And then start looking at analogous problems, right? So this is probably the trickiest part of it, but start thinking about what is the broader context for this problem, right? We talked about customer support wait times on the phone. Okay, well, is that a problem with queuing? Is that a problem with routing? What problem do we have to look at? If it's queuing, maybe we look at Disney. If it's routing, maybe we look at FedEx, right? So finding out what are those analogous problems and being able to say, okay, we think this is kind of because of this, right? And then start listing out who are those leaders in those analogous problem spaces, right? So FedEx isn't the only really good routing company. Waze, Google Maps, all of those can be really, really good spaces to go look at. And then one of the ways you can start your research effort here is you just ask the question, how would whatever company solve this challenge, right? We talked about queuing and wait times. How would Disney solve for a long wait time? Well, they create really immersive worlds, right? The whole time you're waiting, you're interacting with the Winnie the Pooh ride, right? You're interacting with someone from Star Wars while you're waiting to get on a Star Wars ride, right? It's all of those types of things that you can start to say, okay, how do we apply that? And that's the last step here, right? Take different parts of what they've done to create that experience, and then try to figure out, okay, how do we bring that into our world? So last thing here, I'll get into our case study. So we built a new product. Sopheon's been around for about 20 plus years. And about a year ago, we started the effort to build a brand new product. They were a one product company. We were trying to go from 1 to 2, which, man, Peter Thiel might disagree, but I think 1 to 2 might be harder than 0 to 1. Because your whole business is built around one product, right? And so as we branched out, as we started to look at where's our next space, we landed on, well, we do this portfolio management thing pretty well and build a successful business around it, but we don't really serve that next layer down, the individual contributor product manager or the senior product manager, right? And so we started to go into that space. We started to interview different customers. We got to about 100 different interviews, and this was kind of our distribution curve. So we really focused on individual contributors and then started to go into, hey, what are some other areas? So we've got dev managers, product owners, service designers, people that are stakeholders to figure out, hey, do you have analogous problems as well? Once we got through all that interviewing, we created the product, wireframes, we started to go through messaging. That was probably one of the most fun conversations ever, was to go through messaging for a landing page and figure out what sticks with product people. And when we started to do that, we would say, okay, now we want you to sign up for the product, right? And that's where we started to hit some interesting spots. So we started to go through it, and the whole product is built around this idea that if you're a product person or managing a product, you typically have an objective, and then that serves as kind of your North Star, right? That's my rubric for how I'm gonna make every decision, every trade-off when it comes to priorities. And then you have KPIs that you're tracking the progress to that North Star. Right? They're your navigational beacons to say, hey, are we headed towards the vision that I passed, or are we headed away from it, or are we just kind of sitting here? And so we lay all of that out in the onboarding, and we get a lot of people saying, what's a KPI? Oh, well, we use OKRs, right? And I had to, like, my head wanted to explode and say, like, yeah, those are kind of the same thing. And we just had all of these different translations, right? Oh, you guys call them bugs, we call them fixes. Oh, you call those user stories, we call those enhancements. Oh, you call those features, we call them epics, right? And we just started to see all of these different pieces that were creating friction points. And since we had all worked on it for 5 months, we were like, yeah, it's the same stupid thing. Like, can you just go? but it was a really important learning for us. And then once we dropped them onto the landing page, this was our first iteration of the landing page. Yeah, I gave this talk at Pandemonium, so that product is called Pandemonium, if anybody can read that. But we would land them on this blank landing page, and we would see like the empty Excel sheet stare at death. I'm like, oh shit, where do I go from here? Like, how do I get started? For everybody that is anybody an A1 cell user on Excel ever? Right? Like, I automatically like, oh, something's gonna go up there, I just don't know what it is yet. I go down a few rows. It was the same thing. It was like, oh my God, how do I get started? Right? And so that's when it started to get real uneasy. It was like, oh man, we've spent 4 or 5 months like planning this all out, and it's just people are getting stuck on step 1, right? And so that really led us to this idea of world building. We ran into those 2 problems, right? We ran into this translation problem. How do I translate your language to my language? And then we ran into this, how do I get started problem, right? And so we started to say, okay, well, how do we do this? How do we help users understand our world that we want them to play in? And we knew that software wasn't really good at this yet, right? And I'm pretty sure 90% of you can guess who's going to be on this graphic when I click next, but we really, really wanted to avoid recreating that graphic. We did not want the Sopheon Clippy asking you if you wanted help building a Word document. So that was something that we said, okay, we have these problems, we know where we don't want to go, right? We know we don't want this annoying, like, oh, it looks like you're trying to write a letter to your mom. No, I'm trying to plan a roadmap. Please leave me alone. So how do we move forward? And we started to go through this exercise. We started to say, okay, if those are our problems, who does that really well? And where we landed was on video games. Does anybody play video games? Okay. RPGs, first-person shooters. Yeah. I'm a Call of Duty fan myself. They are really, really good at this. For anybody that plays an RPG, play somewhere between 40 and 60 hours if you're playing some side quests and some main story. How in the world do they get you in the first 3 minutes to understand that entire world state and how to translate it into what you have today, right? Same thing with first-person shooters. I shouldn't tell you, largely because it's my way to stay connected to college buddies, but I couldn't tell you the number of hours that I've spent playing Call of Duty. And within the first 3 minutes, they help you translate the world you live in to the world you're going to play in, right? And for anybody that's played a lot of similar games, they all have similarities, but they all have these little tweaks, right? So first-person shooters, role-playing games, maybe you have fall damage, which means like if you jump off a building and you fall, you die. Maybe you don't, right? Maybe it's Halo, and you can jump as far as you want to jump forever, and there's no damage for falling. Maybe you have shields, maybe you have health, maybe your health regenerates, maybe it doesn't. They teach you all of these things in the first 3 to 5 minutes playing the game, right? And so we were like, man, how do they do that? And like, what makes them so effective at being able to take these huge, expansive worlds they spend years building, and all of these characters, and translate it into a way that we can digest it, right? And we can do that translation in real time and know what to expect. And so we landed on kind of two pieces that we thought were really, really critical that we could apply back to our software. The first was being able to create that translation, right? Being able to have a guide, because if you play these, typically, if you play a first-person shooter, you end up on the training, like, basic training ground, and there's a major general there that walks you through all right, this is how we're gonna go through this training exercise, right? You learn how to shoot, you learn how to aim, all of those things, but you have this guide that's helping you if you're struggling, right? And then keep reminding you, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. The other thing that they do really well is they give you that starter mission, right? They give you that first mission that you have to go through that explains all of those things with the guide to show you, okay, this is the objective of the game, right? This is how you get points, this is how you get hurt, right? This is the good thing to do, this is what it's not so good to do. And so those were the two things that we said, okay, how do we steal those, right? And I steal those because, you know, Epic Games isn't going to get mad at me for making my software for product managers better. So the two things that we landed on were those two. So creating guides that could really translate our space to their space. So we have info bubbles in the product now. When you land on that dashboard, we now have a walkthrough that explains each one of those widgets, how to use them, maybe nav, what the different parts of the nav are used for, and it's 5 clicks, right? So we do, just like video games, we need to do this in the first 3 to 5 minutes or it's not going to happen, right? People are just going to leave. But we also, people spend a lot of hours in our application. And so we implemented those, and then the other part is, if I go back, wrong way. In this empty space now, we've given you a starter mission, right? We've given you, hey, go create your first feature, go write your first user story, go tag your KPI in one of those user stories so you can see the impact to your release plan, right? And so we've allowed them to go through that first starter mission to be able to see how the whole world connects. It can translate back to theirs. So that is a little bit of our case study. If you want to learn more about it, we've got a booth out there. So shameless plug, come see me and we'll walk you through it. And then the last thing is we have added some things even beyond that as we continue to try to figure out how do we make this onboarding easier, right? We've started to do things that are starting to be kind of fun. You know, we've implemented an artificial intelligence engine that you tell us what industry you work in, and it suggests relevant key metrics, KPIs, and it suggests relevant goals for you to track, right? So if you're in e-commerce, you're probably tracking average order value, probably tracking conversion rate, total sales, revenue, all of those types of things. If you're in healthcare, you're probably tracking patient outcomes, readmission rates, average A1C reduction, right? These are all the types of KPIs that they're tracking as healthcare product managers. So we continue to look at different ways that we can make this easier. So it's kind of like our aim assist, if you will. Like, all right, you don't have to be the most sophisticated aimer. You can just kind of get close and we'll help you. So all of those types of things, we continue to just go back and we look at, okay, what are different things that we can steal and put into our learnings and apply to our world. So key takeaways here, don't look at your competitors, right? Once you understand the feature grid, once you understand the feature comparisons, your spec sheets, all of that stuff, leave your competitors alone, right? The only thing you're gonna do is gonna be like tied ships in a sailboat race, right? They're gonna catch a gust and you're gonna go, oh, there's a gust, but they're already ahead of you, right? So that's not the way that you have to be able to get past them. Understand you compete in the experience economy, right? We talked about that early on. If you're creating a mobile app, you're not competing, let's say you're creating a mobile app for healthcare, right? You're not competing with Highmark, you're not competing with UPMC. You're competing with Uber, you're competing with DoorDash, you're competing with finance companies. What else is on my phone? You're competing with TikTok, Instagram. All of those experiences use all of the pieces of that device, right? Short tangent, when I worked at Exporting Goods, we created a mobile app for Golf Galaxy. And when we looked at it, we said, okay, what can we do different, right? We don't want to create golfgalaxy.com on mobile app. Like, that sucks. And you could go there in Chrome and have the exact same functionality. So the differentiator for Golf Galaxy is they have a Golf Pro, PGA licensed pro in every single one of their stores. And they do fittings and they do lessons. And they record the lessons and then they send you the lessons in a video. So you take an hour lesson and condense it down to 3 minutes. And they say, hey, here's what you're doing right. Here are the things to continue working on. And they send it to you, right? So the entire Golf Galaxy app, instead of being centered around e-commerce, was centered around that differentiator. So we allowed you to schedule fittings to get broken clubs, and we allowed you to schedule lessons. And then once you got those lessons, we put them into the app so that right before you teed off, you could go back and look at, okay, yeah, I need to keep my elbow in, whatever it was, right? Because we knew the demand of a mobile app was different than the demand of an e-com shop, right? Different expectations. And even inside of their mobile app, Sam's Club does this really well. If you're at a Sam's Club, you have a totally different mobile app experience than if you're sitting at home, right? It understands the context of where you are and makes your life easier in that context, right? So when I'm I just did it on my way here. When I'm at the store, it says, hey, you might be at a fuel pump. Do you want to scan the QR code at the fuel pump so you can pay with your mobile app? Hey, you might be in the store, do you want to scan and go so you don't have to scan everything whenever you're done, right? Understanding those contexts allows you to compete in that experience economy, right? And then it's not, you're the best crappy call center. It's like, oh man, I really love calling Zappos because their customer service is legendary, right? Same thing with Southwest. The other thing here, be creative with your alternative world candidates, right? Don't feel like you have to look at adjacent industries. Go as far out to right and left field as you can, right? Find people that do that job really, really well, and then go figure out why, right? What do people love about the way that they handle that problem? And then the last thing is you're not limited to doing it once, right? We took some things from the video game industry. They are not the last company or the last industry that we're going to steal from, right? We continue to go back and we look at different industries for different inspiration to the same or different problems, right? So once you've gone through it, stolen a couple ideas that you can apply to your business, say, okay, we didn't get to the next column, right? There's a whole other industry that we know has a similar problem and they handle it really, really well. So go out and do it again and again. And then, the fun thing to do here as well is just to look at how you can mix those recipes when you go back, right? So if you're gonna look at the same industry, maybe you mix up the recipe. One of the most powerful immersion exercises I've ever done was trying to figure out how we solve for notifications and how we solve for accessibility. And I took American Sign Language when I was in school, and my professor said, hey, the next time you fly, put on noise canceling headphones, turn on music as loud as you can so you can hear a fit, and try to go through the flying experience. It's awful, right? Like, it is absolutely atrocious. From the time that you arrive at the airport and you go to check your bag, and you're just sitting there doing this, right? Because there's 19 places that you can go check in, and there's no light that indicates who's ready, who's not. And so you can't hear them say, hey, I can help you over here, right? So you're just sitting there scanning. And so you finally get through that experience, and then you go to security, and people are asking you for your boarding pass, people are asking you for your ID. Unless you've flown before, you don't know what they're asking you for. When you go through security, if you can't hear the metal detector beep, right? So how do you know that you need to walk back through the metal detector? It's all of these things all the way through sitting down at the gate, right? When I sit down at the gate, when I travel, I pull out my iPad, I have my AirPods in, I'm playing on my iPad, responding to emails, whatever. When I was doing it with those headphones on, I was like, oh shit, if they change the game, I'm really screwed, right? So I just had to sit there and just watch, right? And every once in a while I could look at something and pull my headphones up and just like, all right, yeah, same people still here, right? It's an awful, awful experience, right? But it was one of those things where it's like, oh man, how many of those things can I apply to accessibility inside of my own application, right? Color blindness, all of those types of things, right? Anybody remember the first Color Rush NFL game? It's one of my favorite stories about accessibility. So the NFL created those Color Rush uniforms, right? All one color, so the Steelers are all black with like the gold trim. The very first one of those games was on a Thursday night football game. The Jets were playing the Giants. The Jets were in all green. The Giants were in all red. What is the most common colorblind combination in predominantly male society? Like it would have taken 5 seconds for somebody to say like, hey, maybe not. Like maybe one of them is just wearing a white uniform and one of them is wearing a color uniform, which is what they switched to now because they got so many calls. The NFL Network got so many calls saying, hey, there's something wrong with your picture. I can't tell the teams apart because so much of their audience had that accessibility issue and they never fought it, right? So those are little things that you can look at and say, okay, how do we steal from that? How do we steal from that learning? The NHL, center lines. Anybody watch hockey? What's different about the center line from the blue lines other than the color? Do you know why that is? So NHL games started being televised before color TV. So the announcers were talking about the red line and the blue line. But on the black and white TV, they look exactly the same. There's no difference. So they started splitting the red line so that they could say that's the dotted line in the middle, you know, compared to the offsides of the blue line. So all of these things you can start to look at and say, okay, what are these different anecdotes? What are these different things that we can take and we can apply to our own industry, apply to our own problems, right? So again, not limited to doing it once, continue to go through it. As I said, I'm around all day, but I know we're about 5 minutes away from wrapping up here. So happy to take any questions, or I'm happy to hang out and talk after the talk as well. So thank you.